Alright guys, so this is going to be a contest entry for Notw21. So let's get to it. So my first reef disaster would definitely have to be the hair algae outbreak in my 46-gallon tank. Honestly, at the time, I did not know what I was doing. I didn't have an efficient skimmer. I didn't have any GFO running. I had no carbon. I had no flow whatsoever in the tank. I honestly just didn't know what I was doing. And over time, the nutrients collected up and caused high nitrate and high phosphate. And it just created this humongous hair algae outbreak, which looks absolutely terrible. It also created some cyano, but I didn't see as much cyano as I did as hair algae. Now, it was a lot of work to get rid of this, so let's get into that. So what I had to first do was I had to go in, take each individual rock out one at a time, put it in a bucket of salt water, and scrub it down. I did not want to scrub it inside the tank due to the fact that I'll spread spores everywhere. So I took out each rock and I scrubbed it, and I scrubbed it for a really long time. I took out as much hair algae as I possibly could. This took a really long time and I had to be really patient with it, but in the end it paid off really well. After I went in and scrubbed all the rock, I started to rescape the tank to optimize it so I get more water flowing through the rocks. And you can see that in the aquascape I did right here. There's a lot of caves and crevices where the water can flow right through. I also added some power heads, which allows me to stir up all that detritus and keep everything suspended so it can get filtered out. Now down in the sump, I added a skimmer, which is the Reef Octopus NWV110, which is at the time the most cost-effective skimmer, and it was a really good top-line skimmer. I also added some Chaeto and GFO, and over time, it started to look really good. I started to get lots of results as for the coral opening up more, coral growing. You can see right here, there's the skimmer, and there's the Chaeto, and the little T5 light I got right there. It wasn't the nicest setup, but it did work. Alright, so after 6 to 7 months of hard work and a lot of patience, I finally got the tank up to par where I wanted it. I got rid of most of the hair algae, the corals were looking really good. I added some new equipment, that's for lighting and for filtration. I still had the Cryolia 1050s, but for the most part everything was the same. In the top left corner you can see I added a rose bubble tip anemone. In the middle of the screen you can see that my chalice has grown really well into a huge 8-inch diameter chalice. Most of my corals started to really take off. My hammerhead got 3 heads from 1, and it started to grow baby heads on each head. I caught the SPS bug and I started adding SPS to the tank. In the top you can see that there's a Montipora digitata, which was one of my first SPS. In the bottom left you can see my elegance, which is doing really well. Started to color up after that major phosphate and nitrate outbreak. My GSP, as always, was doing really well, but now it started to really take off on growth. And my mushrooms and my zinnias always did well, and they were just in their own little world. For my metal halide, I changed out the bulb from a Odyssey bulb to a Phoenix Hexarc 14K bulb, which really contributed to the elimination of hair algae. My Odyssey bulb was really giving out par for the hair algae to thrive on, but after I added the 14K bulb, it started to help with the melting of the hair algae and to prevent it from growing back. I changed out my GFO to biopellets, and I stopped total use of GFO and I solely relied on biopellets. I still had the Chaeto, but the Chaeto I started to slowly remove due to the fact that it was getting stuck in my impeller of my skimmer, which you can see just in a second. Also, the light that was lighting the Chaeto was growing all sorts of weird types of algae in the skimmer, making it less efficient. So that was becoming a pain. So I just slowly started to take it out while I was doing water changes. So overall, I really liked the tank. It was doing really well, and there was just a few minor things that really got on my nerves with the tank. One of the things was maintenance, which was a big pain on this tank due to the fact that everything was crammed together on the bottom of the stand. And since the shape of this 46-gallon tank is a bow front, it's hard to put a nice big sump down there to get the room to do what I wanted, which was to have ease of maintenance. Alright, so this brings up a really big disaster on this 46-gallon tank, which was basically the rush of building the tank. I really rushed this tank. I built it in about a week. It was really messy, it was unorganized, and everything was just wrong about it. I had electrical wiring that wasn't wired properly. I had everything in the sump just thrown in there. It wasn't really organized in any fashion. When I first started out, I didn't do proper research, which caused that major hair algae outbreak. I just didn't really know what I was doing, and it just caused this huge, really ugly, rushed tank, which basically allowed me to kill a lot of corals and fish and basically lose a lot of color and brown them out. I've also wasted a lot of money on equipment that I never ended up using, which was basically rendered useless. So my suggestion to you new people in the hobby is to basically take your time and do things right. Get the right equipment the first time around. Don't get cheap equipment and then buy better equipment down the road. Save up for that good equipment, because in the end you will end up getting it and you're going to pay double the amount and waste more money. So what was my solution to this? To tear down the whole thing and just start over the right way. So here's my new 58-gallon tank, which I built from scratch basically, and it took me about 8 months to build this, and I really planned this tank out, and it came out exactly how I wanted it. It's not completely finished. I still have to add more coral. I'm making a door for it, but overall it turned out really well, and I really loved this tank. Everything except for the actual physical tank is custom. That light mount is custom for the Radeon. I waited a really long time to get my hands on those two WP-25s. I waited about 2 to 3 months to get those. So patience is the key in this hobby. A lot of these fish selections were made through intensive thinking and just planning it all out to make sure they don't have any aggression towards each other. Everything was really thought out in this tank.